Welcome back to FreightWaves Now. It's Wednesday morning, which means it's time to catch up with Blythe Brumleve, our content marketing expert and host of Cyberly here on FreightWaves TV. Blythe, thank you for joining us today as always.
Thank you for having me. Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday. It feels like it's been forever. We missed you at the 3PL Summit last week, so it's great to have you back on again. And speaking of 3PLs, let's just kind of start there with our conversation for today. Talking about a Twitter thread that we recently saw up on Twitter, all about what shippers want from their 3PL, which I feel like should be a no-brainer, right? Like, don't 3PLs know what shippers want from them?
Well, I think that was what was fascinating because for a lot of 3PLs, they spend so much time and energy into putting in this SEO research, so search engine optimization, and they make these blog articles with the idea that they're going to attract shippers to their website, and that's just not really how it works in modern day, sort of B2B buying environments. And so for a lot of 3PLs who don't do customer research, they're kind of guessing as to what a shipper would want from them. And so this particular person, he is the VP of operations for Franklin's Popcorn, I believe is the name of it. And he put a whole Twitter thread of what he wished he would have known before he started working with a 3PL. And the bigger takeaways from that conversation was he wanted to know in advance, because before I list those 2 points, the thing you have to understand with a lot of these shippers, especially from an e-commerce environment, is that they're coming from a situation where they're used to running everything. They're used to being able to, the stop person, the last person before a decision is made or when crisis and things hit the fan. So from that lens, that's when he started looking to hire a 3PL to help him. And so from that lens, he was very concerned about shipments that were arriving late, shipments that were getting charges that he had no idea about. And so he went through this whole list of the things that he wished he would have known to help other e-commerce shippers out. And just a couple of those takeaways is that you're supposed to, as a 3PL, help them to free up time and communicate regularly. Those should be no-brainers, right? But that's where he felt that his particular 3PL partner didn't meet up to his level of expectations that he would have experienced had he still been running that internal shipping and logistics department. So I thought it was kind of an interesting takeaway that you can look at social media platforms in order to gather those customer insights, in order to be proactive with your communications. And it sounds very simple that, all 3PLs should be doing this on a regular basis, but he felt personally affected that he wasn't getting those communications as they were happening. So I think it kind of speaks to not only the communication level of 3PLs to shippers, but also from some of the technology advances that we have with tracking abilities and being able to communicate that ahead of time with these shippers, especially for growing e-commerce companies.
So Blythe, when you're talking about brokers at a 3PL, obviously one of their main goals is to win business from shippers. They want to win this freight from their shipper clients and maybe even get some new clients into their ecosystem. And it matters more of just that you have to ask better questions rather than just what can I do for you or what do you need from me, right? Do you have any type of questions that a broker could employ specifically that maybe go a little bit deeper than just that surface level? What do you need? What can I provide you, right? Because it's more about the nuances and the details instead of just the what type of service do you want.
I think one thing that's really helped me, not only in my business, but just speaking with other 3PLs and other carriers out there, is that having those communication preferences up front. That's where I think a lot of the stopgaps are, is that a broker might be used to communicating via phone all day, every day. Well, maybe that shipper doesn't like to be communicated via phone. They just want emails or they want chats. So I think getting those communication preferences up front, it sounds super simple, but that's where I think a lot of the gaps were happening with this particular shipper. And I think, sort of across the board for a lot of different 3PLs, find out those communication preferences first. Do they want to know as soon as things, as soon as chaos starts to happen, or do they want to know that you're on top of it and that you've already fixed whatever problem has come up? So I think establishing those communication preferences from the get-go, from the jump, will help you alleviate a lot of issues down the road, especially if you have their communication preference preferences up front, and you can somehow keep a record of those that say this particular shipper only wants to be communicated through via email. This one likes a chat functionality. This one wants email and phone. They want to know every single thing about their shipment. Maybe you give access to your tracking capabilities. And so I think finding out that kind of information first will save you a lot of headache in the long run. It sounds super simple, but those kind of questions are usually covered, from a project manager standpoint or from a marketing standpoint, and not necessarily from a day-to-day standpoint.
And Blythe, do you have any tips around, this is a different time when you're looking at the supply chain, where you're looking at some parts of brokerages, or like say maybe they do drayage services or things like that. They're in so much more demand than what they were maybe 2-3 years ago. Now we're seeing a lot of these 3PLs like, hey, the ball's in our court, and we are really taking on, more shippers as we can, really kind of grow out the team. Do you see a shift potentially on saying, hey, like maybe this shipper is a little bit more demanding? I got to fill out 3 spreadsheets every morning just to kind of get them updated on all their containers. Do you see like there's a balancing act potentially being kind of put into the market right now?
I mean, if you are a 3PL and if a customer is, I think this is sort of across the board with a lot of different businesses. Like when you first start out, especially if you are a broker or really any other business, you are going to take whoever is going to give you business. And then as you start to grow, then that's when you can make those determinations of either you're going to take this customer and hand it off to, if they're a demanding customer, then you can take them and hand it off to somebody that's a little bit newer to the company to sort of get their feet wet with the entire process. And then that way you can focus your time and your energy on some of those more higher revenue customers that really aren't, too much of a pain in the butt, but that you genuinely like working with them. So I think that that's sort of the nature of all businesses, where at first, you're going to take anything. And then secondly, as you grow, then that's when you can start to deviate from some of the customers that might not be a good fit for you, might not be a good fit for your business. And those are all good problems to have. But I still sort of sit in the corner of that. If you have earned that customer's trust, and 9 times out of 10, you want to do everything you can to keep that customer, because it's very difficult to get a customer, and then to keep them over time is incredibly challenging too, because you got to figure, for all these shippers out here, that if you have one broker relationship or a few broker relationships, there are 12 others that are beating down their door trying to get that business. And so if they're a difficult person to work with, that might be something that you have to weigh on a case-by-case basis, or hand it off to the new guy.
Blythe, let's talk a little bit about what's coming up on this week's episode of Cyberly. You've got 2 really great guests lined up for this week, and I'm especially excited to hear from Liz Wayne from Able Transport Solutions. Let's talk about her a little bit.
Sure. So Liz Wayne is a female CEO in the world of brokerages. So we're going to find out what training that she offers to new freight brokers that come into her company, in order to figure out, how she not only trains new brokers, but in an ongoing fashion as well. Sort of going back to what we were just talking about, those communication preferences and handling demanding customers. So we're going to talk to her a little bit about that. And then also, she's serving on the board of the TIA, which the TIA convention is coming up soon. I'm sure all of you are well aware of that convention. And so with that in mind, TIA has started up a new initiative called Women in Logistics. So we're going to hear from Liz as she heads up a lot of that initiative. So I'm excited to hear not only about, the conference and her freight broker training, but this new Women in Logistics initiative that she's got going on. And then we also got Nick Chubb. Sorry,
I was going to say,
not the running back Nick Chubb.
Different Nick Chubb. I was going to say, I'm super excited for this Women in Logistics initiative as well. I'm actually going to be at the TIA conference in San Diego in about 2 weeks, and I've got my spot secured for the Women in Logistics lunch. They're putting on like a 2-hour luncheon that's for networking, and hopefully Liz will be there. Blythe, are you going to be at TIA Con as well?
No, I made a personal decision that I was going to take care of my best friend who was pregnant. She was supposed to be giving birth around that time. She actually just had the baby. So that's one that I didn't book that I wish I would have. But next year, I will be there next year.
I'll send you all the updates. Don't worry. You can catch them all
please.
on LinkedIn.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it. I really want to see that firsthand insight of the Women in Logistics event.
Awesome, Blythe. Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's always amazing having you on. We'll be sure to check out your latest episode of Cyberly. Well, thanks so much for tuning in.
Thank you, guys. Have a good week.
All right, well, you can catch Blythe tomorrow right here on FreightWaves TV in the afternoon. Right now, we're going to take another quick break, and we'll be back with our last live guest of the day.